Hello, hello, hello. Hi, and welcome. You are watching Good News at Primetime. I am Sylvia Hayes, and I am elated to talk about our topic for today. We're going to be talking about the neighbor's keeper. A lot of us want to keep to ourselves. It ain't none of my business and all that kind of stuff. So we're going to talk about that today. And just to remind you, let you know that Sunday was Grandparents' Day. How many of you said hello, I love you, grandparent, grandma, grandpa, or just an older person? Your grandparents may not be around, but did you go and say hello or let them know that you love them, you're thinking about them, or see, can you do anything for some elder who may be a grandparent and don't have their grandchildren around? Okay, so that is important because as we get older, we can't do everything that we used to do. The older people cannot always cut their yard. So if you know someone who's living by themselves and they need their yard cut it for them. Okay, do you know they need groceries? Sometimes you might have 2 loaves of bread. Share with a neighbor or somebody else. It doesn't necessarily have to be an elder. So we're going to be talking about our neighbor's keeper, and that's what we're about. And don't forget, the registration for voting is October the 11th. October the 11th. Be sure you register. If you haven't registered, do so. If you have registered, make sure you are in the system. Okay, make sure you haven't been taken out. They have the correct address and all of that good stuff, because when it's time to vote, we don't want any mess ups. Okay, so go ahead and check to be sure that you are in the system and they have the correct address and all of that for you. So we're going to be talking about not beyond, our neighbor's keeper, being our neighbor's keeper. And to help me with this show, we're going to bring on Mr. Reggie Drummer. Hi, Reggie. How are you doing today?
What's up there, Miss Sylvia? What's up there to our live audience out there? I'm ready. Always thinking about our neighbors. We are our brother's keeper. I encourage everybody to like, share, subscribe, and hit that notification button and join us in the chat. I know tonight we'll be talking a little bit about helping our neighbors, and your neighbor could be anybody that's near you or even abroad. It doesn't have to be the neighbor next door, even though we encourage people to know your neighbor. You got to at least wave at them every now and then, because the way things are now, you got to know where you can go just in case something break loose. And you never know when you're going to need somebody. A lot of times over the years, I've been in a lot of different neighborhoods, and I always make it a habit to meet the person on the left and the person on the right. Okay, sometimes you might run into a situation where that might be the last time we talk. But at least I met them, and at least we established something. But most of my neighbors, we've been good. I hadn't, especially as I got older, people have a tendency to want to have somebody next door to them that says, "Hey, how you doing? Do you need some help?" Like you said earlier, I remember cutting one of my neighbor's yard. He had some surgery, and every time I would get out there, it wasn't that much. I cut his yard, and we did that, for a minute, for a couple of months, and you never know how much that means to someone. And I've also seen people cook food for their neighbors when they were sick or down or things of that nature. So being a neighbor's keeper is a powerful thing.
Yes, it is. And even with the kids, your kids might be outside playing with your neighbor's kids, and you see
Ooh,
your
yeah.
neighbor's kid do something bad. Report that or say, "Hey, don't do that. That's wrong." Just keeping that child in check, and to let a child go and do all kinds of wrong and don't tell the parent, that's not a good neighbor. You need to let them know, because I have no problem in reporting to the parent, because I've seen times when I've called up a parent, tell them your child was doing this and this and that, and the child come back to me, "Why you tell my mama that?" I'm going, "Why did you do it?" It's like she had no business doing what she did, so I reported it, because that wasn't a good thing. So you have to be your it takes a village to raise a child. So because the children don't always do everything right. Well, let me put it like this. They're good in front of the parents, but when they
Oh
out,
yeah.
they're gonna do some bad stuff. And parents sometimes might say, my child won't do that. But if you go back and report, I saw your child doing this, and then later on they're gonna get a report, your child did this, they're gonna start thinking, well, maybe my child is bad, or
Mm.
maybe my child isn't as well is not non mischievous as I thought.
Oh yeah.
Let's put it like that.
Well,
Because
well, when you think about it, we are community or neighbor type people. Uh,
mhm,
even I go when you go back to, I think the biblical text talks about being my brother's keeper. Look after your brother. Look after your sister. One of the things when you have a community type neighborhood, you can address a lot of things up front. I know today we live in a society where everybody's working, everybody's doing their thing, but we see what happens when you neglect your neighbor. That's when the neighborhoods start to fall down. That's when the infrastructure in the neighborhoods start to fall down. That's when people can't walk or they can't leave the house without somebody breaking in. They can't walk down the street without somebody, feeling threatened or something like that. But when you have a neighborhood where they look out for each other, not necessarily they being a nosy neighbor, but they looking out for each other. I remember growing up, uh, when my elementary school was right down the street, and my junior high school and high school was probably about a mile. But when I got to the first lady's house, they knew, kind of ballpark what time we got out of school. They said, "Hey, how you doing? What's your homework?" By the time I got to my grandmama's home, I had been checked about 4 or 5 times by neighbors. Okay, and that made me, want to do something. I got to the point where I was showing my homework. This is my homework. But caring for your neighbors, and that's kind of built in even today. Well, fast forward as we get towards adulthood, when you start looking out for your neighbors, you start looking out for the children that grow up in your neighborhoods. And I know here in Atlanta, sometimes some neighborhoods, people are there for like 2 years. Sometimes they move out, especially if you're in a condo or apartment or something like that. People move up and move out. People sell their homes and, all that type of stuff. Neighborhoods now change real quick because people don't stay that long. It used to be a time where everybody in the neighborhood was there for like 30 years. I think my neighborhood I grew up in, my grandmother had been there about 20 years before we
mhm,
got there. You know what I'm saying? And they ended up dying there, so they knew everybody. So when we came, we was like new people, and then
mhm.
they in turn shared the love just like they did before. So it's kind of built in. But today it's kind of difficult, but it's not impossible. You need to know your neighbor. At least, like I said, there were places I only stayed for about 6 months, but I go in apartments and I say, "Hey, how you doing?" And some neighbors were friendly. Some neighbors was, I was younger and single, so some of them embraced me, some of them didn't. But it is good to know your neighbor and look out for your neighbor. And like when we think about it, when you look at things that are happening around the world, around our communities and outside of our communities, we have a certain amount of compassion and empathy for what's going on with other people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we do. And I know I'm one of the people who kind of halfway keep to myself. But if it wasn't for my kids, then I wouldn't be knowing my neighbors.
Mm.
Because they be out there playing with the other children and to get to know them. So if your kids are playing with somebody else's child, you want to know where you live at. So if your child is not out in the yard, you can go to that person's house. And
Oh
so
yeah.
I had to get to know my neighbors just for the sake of my children. And a lot
Wow.
of parents need to do that. Sometimes they just let the kids go and don't know where they are, whose house they at, or anything. But that way we got a neighborhood bondage. The parents looking out for each other. Because I know one time when my child ran across the street, I almost got hit. Parents came and
Ah,
told me, you know. After I
right.
finished crying, then I whipped his butt for running
Okay.
across the street. you
Okay.
know. Because it scared me so bad. I could have
Mhm.
lost my child. It could have got hurt. So after I finished that, and then I whipped him. You don't do that kind of stuff because he wasn't supposed to cross the street anyway. But a neighbor
Well, okay.
told me, so hopefully he didn't do that anymore. But it's important because I was in a neighborhood. There were people on each side of me and across the street, and I got phone numbers for those people. So if something happened to them, well, we exchanged numbers. Let's put it like that. So they
Right.
could call me if an emergency popped up, and I could call them. So if I was out of town and they knew I wasn't there, my house caught on fire, they could call me and tell me.
Ooh. Yes.
Or if somebody got sick, and they needed some help, I could run across the street and help them real quick. So
Right.
we exchange phone numbers. And that's so important to even just know when your neighbor's coming and going, not to be nosy or anything, especially at the seniors. They may slip and fall inside the house, and
Right.
nobody would ever know if nobody ever come over and nobody ever check on them. So you
Well,
have to keep check on your neighbor, even if you're not even close by. Call your people and check on them and see how they're doing, especially those who live alone. You need to check on them. Be
right.
your neighbor's keeper, even if it's miles away. Check on them and see how they're doing. Because I have known for people to be dead for weeks at a time and
Oh
nobody
yeah.
knew.
Well, you you
So
you you bring up a good point, and I look at especially single men. A lot of men uh, might be living in an apartment, or they might have their own home. They might be separated from their family, different things. Think they just living their life, doing what they do.
mm-hmm.
Uh, well, a lot of men, if you don't have nobody to check on you or call on you, you can end up dead. I remember I was working a job, and this guy, he had taken vacation and he died while on vacation. He never left his house.
Mm.
They found him dead at his house. At work, they was thinking that he was on vacation. Nobody else was checking on it. No drugs involved, nothing like that. About 45, 50 years old, died in his house. One of the neighbors, I think it was a courtesy call, uh, checked on him because he noticed the car was, because this guy usually parked his cars in his garage, and he noticed his car out, and one of the windows was cracked, and he knocked on the door and was trying to tell him. But anyway, when he found out that he couldn't get in touch with him, called the police, and next thing you know, they found him in there dead. So it's good to check on your family members, loved ones,
Yep.
people you know. You'd be surprised what one phone call can do from a distance. Just to see how they're doing. I know sometimes people, we got social media, we got email, texts, but it's something about a phone call when another human being hears another human being's voice. There's, there, it's a good thing. So you definitely got to check on each other. Give them some type of hospitality call. Just check on your neighbors, your friends, family. You ain't got to necessarily call them for some money, but it's good to check in and say,
Yeah,
hey,
just to say hi.
right.
Because I know I call the people. I'm just calling to see how you're calculating.
Yeah.
Just to check on them. And another good thing is leave an emergency number with people. So if
Mm-hmm.
something happened to you and they find out, then they could call your family or somebody like that and let them know what's going on. Because as a neighbor, you can't sign for them to see the doctor or get any kind of treatment. So you
Right.
need to reach out to the friends and family, to the family members, and get treatment. Oh shoot! Hold on, keep on talking.
Well, and it's important, I remember one of my neighbors, he he had a stroke, and he's about old elder gentleman, about 70 years old. He had a stroke, and I kind of felt bad because it was 2 days before I found out that he had a stroke. So he was in the hospital, and I always say God's got a sense of humor, because the day I went to the hospital, he had a thing of church and chicken right next to his bed, so I didn't feel as bad. But one of the things I did ask him, I said, man, I'm not trying to get in your business, but I need to know, some contact members of your family. He was from Sierra Leone in Africa, and he gave me his brother's number in Sierra Leone. He gave me two girlfriends that he had here in Atlanta, and another friend. Well, within a year, one day I was coming in to give him a courtesy because he had another stroke, and I would check on him every evening. I came in, I knock on his door and say, "Hey man, how you doing? Just trying to make sure you got a pulse." We joke like that. Well, one Sunday, I had went out of town. I think I went out of town Friday and Saturday. I came home on a Sunday, and somebody said, "Man, check on him." And one of my neighbors said, "Man, had you seen Sigmund?" I said, "No, man, I just got back in town." Well, I knocked on his door, didn't get there. But anyway, long story short, I found him dead in the bathroom, and I called 911 and all that. But fast forward, I was able to call his brother in Sierra Leone. I was able to call 2 or 3 people here because they had like you guys have a Mississippi association. They had a Sierra Leone association. And that's how we got in touch with his family, his brother. He was like, "Man, I'm so glad that you called and let me know." His cousin, he didn't have no kids. His nieces, they were so glad that I started the ball to roll. I called those 5 people, and within those 5 people, they touched the rest of his family.
Yeah,
Because,
it's important to do that.
yes.
Yeah.
And
Very
I know we
important.
call you Mother Hen there, Miss Sylvia, but I think the other week I had went underground and was missing, and you did check on. You gave a courtesy call. You checked on me, make sure the drum was all right.
Yeah.
It's good to have people in your lives that will check on you, because as we get older, your circle's gonna get smaller. Now it's different with women, because women tend to have the extended family. Everybody wants to see grandmama, auntie, great aunt, all that type of stuff. But as men, sometimes we get a smaller circle within the family. Okay, not saying it's just what it is. Even if men are there in the family, as long as they got a spouse, everybody's looking at daddy, all that. But it's important that we have contact numbers, updated information. Some guys want to go underground. They say, "Drum, I'm just doing me. I don't want to see nobody. I don't want to hear from nobody, and I don't want nobody to hear from me or see about me. I'm to myself." And those be the guys that we find that don't get help that they need. But even outside of that, just checking on people. I know during the summer times, we check on the elderly, making sure that it's not too hot in their homes. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
During the winter time, we check on the elderly, making sure it's not too cold in their homes. And anytime you can do anything like that, it really helps people, and they feel good. I think about my mother. There were people that would check on my mom. I could call them from Atlanta. They'll knock on the door and say, "Hey, how you doing?" Before we got the cameras in the house and all that type of stuff, they would knock on that door and make sure she all right, make sure she took her insulin, all that type of stuff. So neighbors are needed. Being neighborly is a good thing, and we are our neighbor's keeper.
Yeah. And not only just to see if they're doing okay, if they have food. Because sometimes the elderly may not feel like cooking,
Oh yeah.
and sometimes they might have to eat something before they can take their medicine. They may not have the food to eat in order to take their medicine. Sometimes they might take the medicine without eating. Sometimes they might not even take the medicine at all because they didn't eat. So making sure they have food is important too, because you might know that your neighbor don't buy a lot of groceries. So if you go to the store and buy a gallon of milk, buy them a gallon of milk too, or buy them a loaf of bread as well. So that is important. And sometimes not just the elderly, you might have a parent, you might have a two household parent that can't afford to buy their children school clothes.
Right.
Because one of them is sick and the other one's working part-time because they might have got hurt or something like that, neither one of the parents can pull the full load of taking care of the family. So don't say, well, she got a man in the house, let him do it. That man may not be able to do it.
Yeah.
You know? So if you just because you feel like there's a man in the house, let him do it. You don't let those children suffer. So if those children need shoes and you can provide shoes for that child, take care of that child. Even if you give them some hand-me-downs, you know that child needs some shoes. Winter coats. Your children is too big for the coats. Pass it on down to the next person.
Ooh, you know,
so because you are your neighbor's keeper. They may not be able to get a coat. You know, may not be able to buy groceries. I know there are times when kids go to school. Sometimes they go to school hungry, you know, and they be asking for, you want your milk? Can I have this or that? That might be the only meal they get. And we need to teach our children, don't say they're always begging. You know, you need to look into the picture and see what's going on. If that's all they got to eat is what they eat at school, you know, and if you don't want it, give it to them. Right. You know, you never can tell. You never can tell. And another thing, I'm going back to my teaching of the children. You know, when kids, sometimes they go to school with short dresses on or short pants. The pants is too short for them. You know, and they be saying she's trying to be a hot mama and all that kind of stuff. That child may not have any other clothes. That might be all they can wear to get to school, you know, and you're going to mock them because theirs don't fit as well as yours. You know, parents may not be able to buy them any clothes and they want to go to school, so they put on what they got. So we have to think about that too. And if you know that your classmate don't have sufficient clothes or don't have sufficient jacket and you got something extra, share it with them.
Right.
You know, that's the way I look at it. Do you mind? I have a jacket at home. You mind if I bring it to you? Do you want it? Yeah, I want it. You know, they may accept it. It's the way you approach it. Don't act like you big charity case.
Right.
You know?
Well, another thing, like you said, I know we had a comment where one of the commenters was saying that they took it upon themselves during the winter months to go around and, you know, either bring some soup or something to people in the neighborhood, you know, the neighbors. You know, you'd be surprised how many people would appreciate some soup or something during the winter months. You know, they used to do it a lot. You know, when you look at older people, you know, when you got into a neighborhood, they shared a lot. You know, today it's a little different because everybody is kind of to themselves and they kind of private, you know. Let me see. Did you see a story? Police call on the police would call on a black pastor who was watering their neighbor's yard while they were out of town. And that's kind of sad. The pastor was watering his neighbor's yard. Yeah, I know sometimes we in these interracial neighborhoods and you hadn't met the neighbors and stuff like that. But, you know, this guy, he's a pastor. He was watering his neighbor's yard, making sure while they were out of town that they were, you know, plants were taken care of. And you had a neighbor that made a call to the police. You know, maybe the neighbor was sincerely unaware that this, but, you know, just sometimes common sense. And I know sometimes in some neighborhoods it's jacked up. They say, man, this guy, he can't be watering them flowers. They in there breaking in. Somebody might have thought that, but it's good.
Yeah, but you know what? That guy, after the police came, the man said, oh, yeah, he's a neighbor. He knew the man.
Wow.
That's the bad part.
That's the bad part. Well, that's a part of not being a true neighbor. When you will endanger another neighbor. You know, it's good that if you're leaving, to be neighborly, to let somebody on the left and the right know that you're leaving town. Okay? Because what that does, if you got somebody coming over, because I was in a situation one time where a friend of mine, I had to go over to their house and watch their dog. Okay. But prior to them leaving town, they contacted the neighbor on the left and the neighbor on the right. And they said, well, drummer, if you're going to come by between the hours of 6 and 8. And those neighbors knew that I would be around the house between 6 and 8, taking care of the dog, that type of stuff. I pick up the newspaper. Back then they were throwing newspapers in the yard. I take the mail and I go in there and make sure the dog. I was doing that on a regular basis. Well, communication between neighbors is critical because you can put somebody in harm's way if your neighbors don't know what you're doing. And I know sometimes people say, I live a private life, I pretty much stay to myself. But if you're bringing somebody else in, especially some of these neighborhoods now, you can put somebody in a compromised position. That pastor, because a lot of times, especially black and brown people, we don't have a good success rate of making it back when the police show up.
Right. It is sad that they think that all black people are criminals.
But
they're always
those
up to
things could
something.
be,
We do have some nice people,
Yeah, and we got some jacked up people too. But it would have been better if that person that was there had, let the neighbors know that I got somebody coming by and they're gonna be watering the grass. I got somebody coming by every now and then. You gotta communicate. So communication is a key in so many things. Even if you go somewhere, I've gone places to help somebody, and because I was unannounced, when I showed up, and we were bringing food and toys to a family, but when I showed up, people, they were feeling some kind of way. So I had to be introduced into that neighborhood by somebody that was already there. They said, oh, these guys are with us. They brought some food. They brought some toys for the kids, all this type of stuff. So communication is a key factor when it comes down to holding up. Matter of fact, I had to point to this, holding up our own end. If you see in the background, hold up your own end. In order to hold up your own end, you have to be able to communicate with your neighbors.
Right.
You got to have good communication skills because you could put somebody in a compromised position, especially today. If you hadn't told people that, hey, I got somebody coming by, they're gonna be watering the plants, they're gonna come by every evening. You got to have that type of communication. Now, some neighbors will jump in and say, you know what, you ain't got to get nobody, I'll do it. But it's good to communicate with your neighbors. Like I said, I have neighbors over the last 60 years of living somewhere where probably the last 40 or 50 on my own, but I've had neighbors that I had to let know, even if I was having a party, say, man, we're gonna have a party, we're gonna be throwing down. When you're younger, it works. But if you in a neighborhood, you have a party and folk got to go to work in the morning, or all this type of stuff, they feel some kind of way because you didn't communicate with them. And especially now, these people, I know some people in neighborhoods in the suburbs, these people call the police on you, and it might not be nice.
Right. Yeah, that is true. But let's move on to the next part. Not only is our local neighbors, but people are next door, next state, next city. We have to be supportive of them as well. And right now, there's a concern about the people in Mississippi, in Jackson, Mississippi, where they don't have good water. And I know a lot of people, they are taking water down there. And a lot of people, they just see it on TV and that's it. Oh, they having water problem. That's it. They don't think twice about trying to help. So what we want to do is when you see somebody's having a problem, what about opening up your heart, and trying to help? And like the people in Mississippi, everybody want to give water, But what goes beyond the water? What happens after you drink that water and then you still have that water problem? And that's where the Mississippians in Georgia are going to come in at. They getting filters for anybody who want one in Jackson. Well, I won't say anybody. Well, we're trying to get as many filters as possible. So each household will have a filter to put on their faucet to help have cleaner water. Because they've been having bad water for years. It didn't just start.
A long time. Right.
Yeah, it's been a long time. So they need clean water. Otherwise, they're going to be sick just like the Flint people, and other people. Some of them probably are sick already, but we want to give them that clean water. So we're collecting water filters for anybody who wants to do that, who want to give a family a water filter. And it's only $35. Anybody who wants to contribute a water filter to a family, please go to 222lifebeyondwater.org. Lifebeyondwater.org. And you can order a filter. They'll order it and send it to a designated area, and then we're gonna go down there and issue them. Wow. So pass them out to people, and we're gonna have it where the people have to register for it. If you want a filter, just register, and we'll get them one, because they need water. People. Because one guy said that he had to go get water every day for his mom.
Wow.
So that's not cool. So if we can put that filter on there, maybe you won't have to go as much. You can filter your water and have something to drink. So that's what we're doing. This is Mississippians in Georgia. We're still intact.
Okay. Well, that's a great effort.
People on our home front is in stress now. So we're trying to help out. Even though we're gone, a lot of people are gone, but we still go back and that's still home. And so we want to help out. Anybody in the whole wide world, if you want to help the Mississippians, the Jacksonians, that's what the water problem is. If you want to help the Jacksonians, just go to lifebeyondwater.org, and order the filter. Or you can inbox me on my Facebook page. Facebook is Sylvia Hayes. Okay, just Facebook me, inbox me. If you want to give less than $35, and we're collecting that money and get enough to buy a filter, for those homes. Because we got babies, we got intensive care, we have elders who need clean water, who can't get out all the time to go get water. Because with that limited budget and that income, people can't buy water like they used to, because everything went up. Everything. Cost of bread gone up, the cost of gas gone up. People sky high on the rent now. Price gouging everybody, so they can't afford to go get fresh water all the time. So if we can get those filters to them, that will help out a whole lot until they can get that water system fixed. So this is a temporary fix too, but just giving water is even less of a temporary. That's a one-day thing, but these filters last 10 years, so you can filter your water for 10 years. That's a help right there.
Oh, and yeah.
That's what we're trying to do. Our neighbor's keeper, that's our neighbor. Even if they're in New York or wherever, that's still our neighbor. We need to help out. And don't just say, oh, they're having a problem and don't think twice about it. We need to help. We need to help.
So that's definitely a great effort, compassion, because a lot of times when you need help, sometimes the only person that's going to help those folk are you. And you got to think about that. Sometimes you say, well, I think somebody else going to do it. Somebody else going to send that money. But you might be the closest thing to helping someone. So when you, whether it's $1, $30, $50, $100, anytime you see an effort, that's a great effort to help people down in Jackson, Mississippi, that a thing like water, water becomes so critical, so crucial. I always remember there was a fire here in Atlanta, and family got burned out. And I think it was about 5 kids. All of them survived, but everything they had burned. And I was coming by a liquor store. Really, I was coming by to play the Georgia Lottery. And the guy, I said, man, I said, guy asked, he said, man, this guy, I said, well, I'm headed over after I leave out of here to take some money to this family that got burned out. Now, not all the guys, but a couple of guys that was, drinking on the side of the building heard what I said. And believe it or not, them guys came up with about $7. Okay, about 4 or 5 guys. So here's $7, man. Can you take and help that family? Now it touched me because, I was gonna give a little bit, and probably I had about $20 that I was gonna give. I said I'm gonna take $20 over there and get his 20. But when we announced it, and the radio station was on over there, so when I announced it over the air, I said, well, and I'm not gonna. Well, I'll call the street. And I said the fellas off of Martin Luther King and Ashby Street have decided that they were gonna forego the money that they would normally spend on alcohol and donate it to this family. And the radio host got us on the air. Me on the air. I said, and I'm gonna match them. All they want you to do is match them. They came up with. We rounded it off to $10 and say they challenge anybody out there, whether you got money, drinking, or whatever, to take $10 and pledge to this family. And that was one of the things that kicked off other people to give. Because there was somebody out there, but when they heard the story of these men that were on the side of the building drinking, just drinking and smoking, that took their little tools and fuse and put them together to help this family. So a lot of times it's not the big people, because people say, oh man, these big places gonna come, the Red Cross gonna come, this and that gonna come, but when you touch people, when you can go in and be boots on the ground and help some families, that's a powerful thing. So it's gonna take efforts from just regular people, that's who make the difference, regular people, people like you and
yeah. And I know I wouldn't be able to buy a whole lot of filters, but if 2 people get together and buy one, or 3 or 4 people get together and buy one filter, that is one family, not just one person, but one family that will benefit. And these people who have newborn babies, they can't afford to be drinking bad water. And those sick people,
not at all.
they can't afford to drink bad water because they already have ailments.
Right.
So like I said, you want to just pitch in and help out one filter, that would be good. Definitely be good. Lifebeyondwater.org. Lifebeyondwater.org. You just can go there and place your order, and it will be shipped down there, and we're going to go down there and distribute it. So that's a big help right there for a lot of people.
Oh yeah, that's definitely a powerful effort. All around there's challenges that are facing so many families, so many communities. And I know sometimes people say, man, I've been giving, I'm giving, but you never know when you need something. I've been on the giving end and I've been on the receiving end. I remember back, I think it was 96, and I wasn't even expecting it. And there was a group that came down, and the house that I grew up in, it flooded. It was about 10 feet underwater. They had to gut everything in the house. Wasn't nothing in the house. It was underwater for about 2 weeks. And all the drywall, all the interior, and there were some people that came down from Minnesota, a group of people, and local people as well that came, and Habitat and a couple others that came and put work in to help those houses. Matter of fact, we were down there. I was down there personally. I stayed maybe 2 months or something like that. I was able to pitch in a little bit to help at least clean the houses off. I was using a pressure washer to bleach the houses down. But you
Mm-hmm.
know, when you can help people, your neighbors, whether they it's a natural disaster or something like that, it, you can go in. It's something that makes you feel some type of satisfaction when somebody come. I remember my grandmother was, I think, yeah, she was alive, and they were so happy that we came and other people came to help them rebuild. Like you said, a
Yeah.
little thing like water, to sit down on a table and eat food, and you're not in a shelter. Uh, those things become important. I know that that might be at the extreme end, but on regular basis, when neighbors see about each other, you can have neighborhood watches. I remember several neighborhoods I was in. I was part of the neighborhood watch. You know, we walk around the neighborhood. Matter of fact, we would drive our own personal cars and put a little sign on the neighbor on the side of the car, and we volunteer and drive around the neighborhood at different times. You know, the men decided they police the neighborhood to make sure that the women felt safe in the neighborhood, and by doing that, they made the neighborhood closer, and that brought protection to the neighborhood. Outside people stopped coming in because they knew the men and women in that neighborhood were together. When you got a neighborhood that's not together, you're gonna be at the mercy of whoever shows up, whoever comes in there. People, you know, it's just
Mm-hmm.
like a house. You know, a house divided is just, you know, it's messed up. Somebody come in and take over the house. But when you got a neighborhood where people love, respect, and value each other, certain things not gonna happen in that neighborhood. I come to mind, a lady called me about a month ago. In her neighborhood, uh, drugs had just taken over. And this is
Mm.
currently going on. She said, I need somebody to come in and just be there in my neighborhood. Well, it's kind of difficult for an outsider to come in and be effective. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to be able to stay there. I might come in and she might feel comfortable 1 or 2 days out of the week. Okay. But, you know, I did come through and, you know, and certain things I said, well, you know, you got to do this. You got to, matter of fact, we got one of those little, uh, I forgot the name of it. These alarms that you can have for your on your phone. But uh, and and I encouraged her. And I said, well, what you got to do is link up with other people in your neighborhoods. In your neighborhood, you know, a lot of seniors in that neighborhood and a lot of young people. But that's what caused a problem of no neighborly love over a period of years, where the young people don't
Mm-hmm.
feel part of the neighborhood. You know, they end up selling dope, harassing the older people. And the older people don't feel a part of the neighborhood, so they end up staying in the house, hiding away from the young people. You know, just coming out, they need some groceries or something like that. But in order to build stronger neighborhoods, we have to be our neighborhood keepers. We have to look out for the babies, the young people, because at some point we're gonna get old,
Yeah.
and you're gonna need or want people to care. You know, and so you got to teach them compassion at an early age. You
Yeah,
know,
and just because they are not your children doesn't mean that you can't say anything. Because
oh,
sometimes,
exactly,
some kids they be wanting that discipline,
yeah, just
and
a
they would
little bit of
appreciate
guidance.
it. They might act all tough right then, but down through the years, they would appreciate you trying to put them on the right path. And
Oh yeah,
sometimes all it needs is to show that you care for them to get up and do right. That's
yeah.
all it takes. And
And like you say, and it goes back to communication too, because in this neighborhood there was a young man, and this one is just started up, but in the past I've been in neighborhoods where we had some seniors that were in that neighborhood, and you know, I come out or some other guys come out. And they said, we're gonna see." You know, they were doing what they were doing, but I said, "Man, could you watch out for my auntie?" And then I come through the neighborhood, but it's pitch dark. And the brother said, "Man, yeah, we watching out for your auntie, we watching out for your auntie, Now these are young people that was watching out And once she got to the point where she could trust them and feel comfortable, they go down to the store and bring her groceries.
Mm-hmm.
You know, see, you got to reach out and empower people in your neighborhood to help you. You know, a lot of times people say, "Ain't nobody coming, nobody don't want to see about me. I got old and kick me to the curb." You got to use the resources where you are. And I know sometimes it's difficult to reach out to people, and even a person that's kind of proactive. It's difficult. You knock on somebody's door and they don't open the door. You don't know if they breathing or living or dead. They never come out. And a lot of people are doing this now because of COVID and other things. So people have felt a little bit detached. But I encourage people to reach out. If you're an elderly person in the neighborhood, uh, you got to reach out to other family members. If you're a younger person in the neighborhood, you got to reach out to people within the neighborhood and look out for them. You know, older people that can't get around. And you know what? I see young people helping people. I've been in many neighborhoods where I see people helping the elderly. Uh, you know, just a whole different thing. A lot of stuff that happens on the media. Now, yeah, they got shootings going on in some apartment complexes and things like that. But we have to get back our neighborhoods, and part of getting that neighborhood back is being neighborly, looking out, being our brothers and sisters keepers.
Yeah, and we also got to protect our elderly too, because they're being scammed by a lot of people.
Oh,
So
yeah.
if you're seeing people who scamming and you know that the neighbors could get scammed, tell them about it. You know, don't let them get caught up in that kind of stuff, because people will take your money. As much as we like to have nice people, there are a lot of bad ones out there.
Oh, they'll take your money. They'll take your house. They'll take your property. You know, there were people and that were robbing the elderly. This is why communication in the neighborhood is critical. There was a neighborhood where 4 or 5 elderly people got taken. They were supposed to get. It was a storm that came through and blew the roofs off all these neighborhoods. And these folk came in the neighborhood and ripped off about 10 seniors in the same neighborhood. Now, that was a part of poor communication, because those seniors weren't communicating with each other. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They didn't have a game plan. Yeah, they older, and they didn't have nobody that would intervene and say, "Grandmama, auntie, granddaddy, we need to look at this. These folk, they got your money and they hadn't done any work." Now, some people, it was months before they got roofs put on, windows replaced. These contractors came in the neighborhood and just went, they pretty much raped and pillaged the neighborhood, took advantage of the older people in the neighborhood. Now, that probably could have been avoided if it was some type of communication in the neighborhood and people became their neighbor's keeper. And then even outside people that came in and do that, if do unto others as you would have others do unto you. You don't want nobody taking advantage of your auntie, your grandmama, you know, in a crisis situation, you know. So we have to have some compassion. We got to take greed out of this situation, and we have to look after each other. Also, like voting, you know, you have to let people know about voting in the neighborhoods. You know, we would take elderly people to the polls. And these neighborhoods outside of my neighborhood that we just pull up and, you know, but again, you got to have some type of communication where you knew they needed a ride to the poll and they could participate. So part of being neighborly would be to, you know, extend the olive branch. Sometimes it might be a little difficult, you know, being a little older, and I'm like a junior senior on the block. So I'm old enough where they don't be too scared of me. They said, "Drummer, I don't know, I ain't gonna let one of these young boys come in my house." You know, I used to bring a little sister, older sister. She passed away not too long ago. She was 97 years old. I go pick her up, Halls, cough drops, and ice cream. You know, at least once a week, just to check on her. Her daughters, one was in Chicago and one was in New York. They called me. They say, "Mr. Drummond needs some money. Can you get mama some ice cream?" She was like my adopted mama here. And,
Yeah.
I'd bring her some ice cream and, fellowship with her. You'd be surprised what that means and what that does to the person helping and also to the person receiving the help. So
Yeah.
empathy and
You know,
compassion.
just having that visit, just interacting with other people rather than having to stay home by yourself all the time, it means a lot to people. And
Hmm.
also, I want to say that those people who want to mistreat the older people, one day you're gonna get old.
Oh, yes,
You're
yes.
gonna get old, and somebody gonna treat you
Um,
like that. Somebody may just have you crying, because of
oh,
the
yeah,
way they treat you. So you don't
right.
want to mistreat anybody. And
Mm-mm.
and also I want to say that if you know somebody that's mistreating an elder, tell on them. You either
Mm.
try to get them to stop, don't do them like that, or tell. It's okay to
Mhm.
snitch, you know, because if it happened to you or your mama or your grandmama, you want somebody to tell you that's going on. So you tell when somebody's doing something to somebody else. If somebody breaking in the elder home and you know who did it, tell on them. Because if they break in your parents' house or your grandparents' house, you want to know who did it. Okay?
Right,
So I
exactly.
have no problem in snitching. When it comes
Hey,
to something
what they
like that,
say?
because they had no business doing it.
They
Because
put
I was a
snitch- they put
supervisor.
snitches in stitches.
Yeah, I know, but I was a supervisor, and this girl was doing some bad stuff, and I reported her, and cops got her and stuff, and she wanted to know why I do it. It's like,
Mhm.
this is not your stuff. You shouldn't be stealing from this store. This is your place of employment. You should not be stealing. No, when I work somewhere, it's just like it's mine. You don't take
Okay.
from me. You know, you just don't do it. I'm like one of the most honest people you ever want to run across. So people tell me all the time, Sylvia, you too honest. But I can't help it.
But you
I
sleep
can't, I
good at
can't
night.
help it. Huh?
Uh, you sleep good at night. One thing when you put good into the system, a lot more good comes out.
Yeah.
Sometimes it doesn't take money. A lot of times it just takes a kind person just reaching out to people. You'd be surprised how many people uh, just need somebody to call to check on them. A phone call. One of the things we put out not too long ago over the next 100 days is to contact 100 of your family members, friends, and associates. As you get older, it might be difficult to find 100 family members. Okay. But
Mm-hmm.
as you start reaching out with family members and you reach out and just say, "Hey, how you doing?" Just touching bases to see, uh, did you need anything like that. That sounds corny at first, but once you get outside your family, you into associates, friends, and people of that nature, you'll be surprised. Everybody don't want nothing. They just was
Right.
glad that you checked in on them. You know, uh,
Exactly.
if you could check in on people just once a month, just once a month. Normally for me, my top 10 might be, you know, over the years would be my mother, my dad, my brothers, sisters, cousins, my son, all like that. That's about 30, 40 people. I check on them about once or twice a week. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Outside extended, it will be other people that I come in contact with, associate people that I know. I at least try to check with them at least once every other week. Drum, you just called me last week. Just want to check on them, make sure that they're okay.
Yeah.
Especially as we get older, it helps when you reach out to people because you know you got somebody looking out for you, checking on
Mm-hmm.
you, not necessarily getting in your business, but just checking on you, making sure you got a pulse. Just like I said, a lot of brothers that I've lost over the years, I would check on them at first. Even like Fred, I remember when I first started calling Fred. Fred's like, "Reg, what you calling me for?" That's Fred just call you. And after some point, we developed some type of relationship where he called me and check on me. I just kind of check. It was awkward at first because you got
Mm-hmm.
males checking on each other. But when we would get the dads on duty, you'd be surprised how many men, after a period of time, welcome that call. If I
Yeah.
hadn't called some of these brothers in 2 weeks to let them know we had a meeting or something like that, they felt like I had forsaken them. So just a phone call, and then we would do a regular get together where we call it breaking bread at least once every 2 months or something, about once a month or once every other month. We get together, break bread. And some of these guys are first, I ain't got time to do that. After we started doing it, even today, them brothers still want to get together and just break some bread,
Yeah.
because that camaraderie is part of what makes the neighborhood. When a brother knows he can call somebody, even like the lady that called me a couple weeks ago, she said, "Drummer, I just want somebody to come by and walk around my house just to show them that
Mm-hmm.
a man is around." I walked around the house. I looked at some stuff. I said, "Well," I said, "Sister, one thing we're gonna have to do, we're gonna have to cut these scrubberies, these bushes down, and you're gonna have to put a little camera alarm or something like that." And very inexpensive. And she was able to do that, and she felt a little bit better having some things, being a single lady, around the house, and that she could, feel some type of security, and then, encourage her to reach out to her neighbors. Because when I was walking around her house, I saw another little lady. She would say, "Oh yeah, how Miss so and so doing?" And they hadn't seen each other because of COVID. These two
Mm-hmm.
neighbors that hadn't seen each other since January, and this
Yeah.
this this was back in August. So when people can communicate with each other, and that's why it's so critical that we reach out, show a little love for each other. Even in passing, when we see people, sometimes we in the South. Sometimes you got to say, "Hey, how you doing?" And you can't help everybody, but you can at least show them a little bit of love, where they
Yeah.
feel a little good or comfortable. I know there's some flim flams out there, some jokers out there. You got to be careful. They'll take advantage of you. But I pray, ask the Creator to give you wisdom and knowledge to be able to move around and get around, and watch out for each other.
Yeah, and the other thing, domestic abuse.
Oh yeah.
Being your neighbor's keeper. If you see somebody in domestic abuse situations, you may not can stop it, but then sometimes you can. You speak to the person. Hey, why are you doing this? Or talk to the person who's being abused. You
Mm-hmm.
can do better, or do you need some help? You want me to help you? So you can step in somehow, because sometimes I've seen times where they get together and plan the exit.
Mm-hmm.
So that's being your neighbor's keeper. You plan the exit. Sometimes somebody gonna jump on you. You call for help. you know,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll be there for you. They might just stand around. Just be their presence can keep you from being harmed.
Oh
You
yes.
know,
Yes.
just the presence, because some people don't want other folks to see the ugly part of them.
Oh
They
no.
just
Oh
they
no.
just want to be nice around everybody. But everybody know how ugly you are. You can pretend if you want to, but just doing that, just say if you see somebody being abused, just say something. Do you need some help? Or man, you shouldn't be talking to your wife like that. She's a queen. You should treat her like so. Just
Mm-hmm.
try to diffuse the situation, make them think that maybe they shouldn't be doing stuff like that.
Right. Right.
Or
Right.
or the person who's the victim, give them a card. Hey, if you need some help, you can call this number. You want to come stay with me? You want me to help you to get out? Just let me know. So that's still being your neighbor's keeper. Because some people,
Exactly.
they're too afraid and they don't know what to do. you
Mm-hmm.
know so that's important right there. And the other thing I was going to say, like school supplies, people be talking about their child, people didn't send their kids home to school with supplies. They should have had these school supplies. They know that child can't learn without them. But then
Ah,
what if that parents can't afford it? you
true.
know then you buy that child some school supplies. Don't make the child suffer because you think the parents should have done it.
Right.
Buy that child some school supplies, and so he can get a good education. If that child is slow in school and you tutor, tutor that child, or even peers can tutor. You can
Oh
teach
yeah.
peers to tutor each other. Get with Johnny and help him learn this math, or help him to read. Y'all get together and read something, or something. Even kids can be their neighbor's keeper.
That's
Helping
right.
out. So
Everybody can hold up. Everybody, you holding with look, hold
hold up
up
your own
your
end.
own end. Yeah.
Yep, they can. Yeah. And so I think we about came to a conclusion on this. And also one of the other things, struggling on a job. If you see somebody struggling at a job and they can't get it, help them out. Don't talk about how they're dumb and they can't do their work. If you see them struggling, help them. Okay? It ain't about looking down on people. And that's my power thought for today. Never look down on a person unless you're reaching down to help them up. You
Oh
know,
yeah.
never look down on a person unless you're reaching out to pick them up. Okay, that's
That's
the
a good one.
power thought for today.
Ah
So
yes.
don't look down on people. Just help them out because you never know what their struggles are. You
Right.
never know. No, just because they look like they're good doesn't mean they are good on the inside. That's the outside look you see. They could be about to pee in their clothes,
Mm,
and you think
right.
they all prissy and everything else. You never know.
Yeah.
Never know. So that's our power thoughts for today is never look down on anybody unless you're reaching out to pick them up. And that's going to be our show for tonight. Oh, I forgot to mention power thoughts. Empowering you to be successful in life. That book is very powerful. As you just heard, one of the thoughts came out of this book, and there are many more, so many that will help you succeed in life, that will uplift you. So get your book. You can go to lulu.com, or you can go to my website, ankproductions.com. ankproductions.com, and get your book today. You will love it. You won't regret it. And so until next time, be your neighbor's keeper and keep your head up. Until next time, y'all have a good one.